the traditional kind of films and media activities and all that. But now the policy for a separate policy for extending some kind of an incentives and some funding for digital kind of a format is being prepared, and very soon it will be, I think, it will come out and it will help the a lot of producers and those who are working in digital area also. So I think this is the proactiveness which is definitely helping. We already have established our leadership in animation industry, and there are a lot many, the institute, the film, the companies which are in operation there. And having established that base, I think for all those who want to come there and establish more kind of activities, this will definitely help them.
Thank you, Anand. I'm going to deviate just a little bit from our outline. I'm going to invite Biren to jump in here. Biren happens to run a large, the studio, the India head for a large MNC. But tomorrow, if Biren, your company's headquarters calls you and says, we have a 50 million more to invest, can you help us go to the right place? What would you do?
Thanks. That's a provocative question and an easy one to answer. To your first point about $100 million, it's my belief that probably for all the right reasons, Technicolor might be the first company in India that has invested $100 million in this space. So, and I'm just proud to be the captain at this point of time. But I want to actually just start by just taking 2 steps back and then coming to your answer. You know, everything in life has demand and supply. The issue that I think we are battling with across our entire space is there's no doubt about the fact that there's demand. But the supply side, that people who make films, people who create animation, people who create broadcast, people who create everything else, has never been organized in a way where we can collectively come together and really make sure that we take advantage of that demand. I am ashamed to say, as an Indian, that the people who made the most progress in figuring out how to get eyeballs and box office seats and monetize this industry is actually Hollywood in the last 5 years, who all opened their offices and whose international films, dubbed in local languages, are beginning to get a lot more money than the biggest film in any part of South India, more or less. And I think there's some lessons to be learned there in how we can work backwards from the consumer in India to people who offer IP, services, production of games, production of content to make that happen. So I think the answer lies within what we have to do. And I think that's really what these forums are supposed to articulate. The other point is, since we're talking about government policy, most of us have been, tiring ourselves, both petitioning the center for a number of initiatives and also the state governments. I am today at a stage where I'm terribly optimistic, incredibly optimistic about what we can do bottom up from states, and I remain cautiously pessimistic about what we can do from the center. And the reason for that is that our industry falls between the chairs in many places. We argued the convergence bill for many years, we've argued co-production treaties for many years, and not much seems to have happened. But the happy news is that when we deal here in Karnataka with the ministry, and when we have been able to help the government to articulate a policy which became the first policy, there are reasons why it's happening at the state level, and those reasons are again outside of our industry. So the IT Vision Group, now headed by Chris but had eminent predecessors, the Biotechnology Vision Group headed by Kiran, Dr. Kiran Mazumdar, the Science and Technology Group headed by the eminent Professor C.N.R. Rao, and our little group, headed by my team at ABI and at this moment myself, helped the government in Karnataka, helped the Ministry of IT in Karnataka to finally get the cabinet locally to agree that this sector is not an IT industry. So it was a wonderful case study where the IT ministry argued with the cabinet that the reason that we should have an AVGC policy is because it is different from an IT industry. And so long as we keep hearing about how the IT policy things get extended here, we heard that earlier from our fearless leader and eminent secretary of ITBT, even this morning, who was doing fantastic things for us. But the moment, and we still continue, perception-wise, to be part of that whole IT story, and I think that's really one of the things we need to really fight for, or push for together, is a separate department that can really become a clearinghouse for ideas, in the same way that we respond to these other sectors. Last but not least, I think there are a number of local solutions that we have to come out with. All of us in what we do will need government intervention and investment in areas that actually create, and not segregated by small, medium size and large size companies, but for everybody, clusters that can create computing power. Because this is an industry that is the finest showcase for high performance computing. There is no industry in this country, maybe outside aerospace, that can actually consume high performance computing tools in terms of render farms, in terms of mocap units, in terms of the things that can be accessed by everyone. And I'm happy to say that while our first policy was aimed at education and in creating training and faculty and curriculum, which is at its early stage, we're already mandated to help with the 2.0 version of our standalone policy, which will actually address the things that Mr. Vijay Shankar spoke about, is how do you create now infrastructure that can make that happen. And I'll end by saying that one of the tragedies that we have in our space that we need to figure out how to harness is talent, because that's our key ingredient. It's my contention, and people involved in education will be able to give us more data, but it's my contention that less than 1 out of every 10 people that go and study either animation or filmmaking or gaming or whatever actually land up in the industry, even in our country. And that points to a malaise that we have to solve as well, and that we have to figure out how to make that happen together. So there's lots to do, and the government can be a very, very active catalyst and an ingredient, provided that it responds to the demands of industry and academia. And unlike our central policy makers, we don't need diktats that say, this is what we are giving you, make something out of it, because that's not the way forward.
You've made several very good points, but you've also very elegantly sidestepped my original question.
The answer to your question is that while we come out with original IP, while we come out with the ecosystem to do that, there is a phenomenal amount of muscle that we can generate in terms of economic value added by international companies coming and actually creating captives here in the way that MPC and Rockstar and Technicolor and Digital Domain and Rhythm and Hues and many companies of Electronic Arts, many people have done, because they help to engage, they help to make that 1 out of 10 people employed. It would have been otherwise 0.2 out of 10 people that were trained to be in this industry. And I think the future lies in this industry for those people who will break away. A really good filmmaker will start as an assistant with another big filmmaker, but in time he'll make his own film. And I think it's from this catchment of people that have worked on The Life of Pi and the Pirates of the Caribbean and the Grand Theft Autos and whatever, you will see that those people have actually got, through osmosis, through training and through the skills that they've acquired, they will be the people that actually will be able to make this $50 million productive without going through a learning curve with that first stage. So that's my view.
Okay. Ashish, you've been involved with a number of policies across states. You're also a man from the industry. You have you're part of the ADAG group, which has made significant investments in the animation space. What's your take on what's happening, what is going right, and what could go better?
Well, when I say that this, a lot of things actually have gone right, but there were more number of things that have gone wrong in the last 1.5 decades that we tried to pursue things. One of the key reasons that we were too obsessed by the service industry, because we are under the shadows of the IT industry. And we took a long time to figure out whether we are a part of IT industry or a part of entertainment industry. Second thing is that when we draw best of both, we actually couldn't stand on our own feet, because in terms of numbers we are very, very small, but in terms of actions we can be much bigger than many of these industries, because nobody has realized that we are not about the number of people or number of studios, but we are about saving culture of this country. While India in 1992 decided to become a liberalized country and we opened gates to various channels, we forgot to put in a rider that you need to show 40-50% content which belongs to or which is produced in this country, which will maintain the cultural fabric of this country, which will promote the culture of this country in a new form of storytelling, which is the today's form of storytelling, which is into the digital domain. Now the issue was that as a result in 15 years, our kids have been exposed to a very cheap content which comes from various countries and dubbed into our languages. Now, where do we really see that when we actually learned a lot of lessons servicing animation, visual effects, comics, and games as a services model to various countries and various big studios, we needed to also see that our governments also appreciate creating the Indian content and take it at the same level. It's very easy to work on somebody's vision, which is coming and saying, okay, in the process of ideation to script and script to screen, the pre-production and the post-production requires the smallest number of team members. I'll do it in my country. Where we require a large number of laborers, I'll send it to your country and do it. While we learn and we create an ecosystem like that, but the thing is that over a period of time, we need to run to respect that creating products out of this country are going to be more beneficial and more long-standing for the industry than just services. Because services are here today. We have seen services going to China, Malaysia, Indonesia, and many of these countries, and many of the studios dried up because there was no work, because today the cost arbitrage story is not in our favor. The cost arbitrage story which was trying to be it was like Kerala government was trying to create that by offering 10 rupees and 12 rupees. For many reasons that didn't work out. And when I say that a lot of things that didn't work out, this is one of those things. Because you cannot have in the middle of a jungle a place where after 5 o'clock people cannot go. While the kids are walking on the streets, there are a lot of snakes there. The thing is, the educational institution took 5 years to be made there. The post-production studios were the only two studios which were existing.
So
now,
these are great learnings from Kinfra, because
yeah,
Kinfra was set up in Trivandrum.
The thing is that you cannot create in isolation. Why this Bangalore, Chennai, Trivandrum, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Calcutta has become a hub is because of over the period of time the skills existed there. And people built studios later on, people built a lot of things, and the ecosystem started to happen. But the form of the policy, even the state policies when we make, it's very important for the states to see that how they can actually intervene in terms of making original content into that region. Suppose Karnataka has a new change of a policy. My request to Karnataka would be to see that if there are the content is created in Kannada, in animation, as the first language, they would incentivize creating original content out of that. And that's how it can be dubbed very easily in animation and taken to rest of the places, so that the talent here would be retained into this place. It will become a big incentive for people to do that. And how long can we just do the services model? The services teaches us a lot of things. It will teach you to enhance your skills to a different level. And it is already working. But the thing is that we need to see that how do we bring the long-lasting sustenance into our business, and how do these people actually make the career? Because there is no incentive, there are no marks for creative arts and performing arts in the school curriculums. So it becomes so much more difficult for people to make a career into this. We need to also look at, we are inclusive of the education process. We forgot that we also require a design aspect to make a digital content. Pune made that one significant investment, that Pune actually has the largest number of liberal arts and design schools, which was not existing anywhere in India except for Ahmedabad at one point in time. And that's something which is actually thriving. How do you keep the performing arts going into the city? And that brings you a lot of talent and a lot of initiative to the whole process. And beyond just having an infrastructure, we need to see that how we can actually individually ride on this as a sustenance model and making sure that large amount of people are built onto the lower bottom of the pyramid who can actually make their career moving forward. And I think that needs to have an inclusive kind of an approach where 5 departments, according to me, are very important. One is the Information Broadcasting Ministry, one is the HR Ministry, one is the Culture Ministry, one is the Finance Ministry, and one is the Ministry of Commerce, which handles exports and stuff. Because you cannot have only outsourcing to be termed as exports, but even intellectual property going out of the country, what they call it as deemed export today, is also bringing in export. So you need to look at the larger picture beyond something which is very direct.
So what you're saying is that media and entertainment has to be, especially the newer emerging sectors, have to be necessarily viewed, more holistically than just the, the initial start that it got with the services sector as a money earner. And I think there seems to be a lot of hangover of that in the system at this point in time.
Yeah.
I want to lead into asking, you mentioned broadcast, and we have on our panel here the person who heads the Indian Broadcasting Federation. Sailesh, what do you think the broadcasting, the broadcasters today could do to synergize with these emerging sectors, and to I know from your website, you have a mission to see revenues going from 3 billion in 2012 to 25 billion by 2020. These revenues have to come from what is already there and from industries and animation and so on, hopefully, which are emerging. So what are your thoughts on this?
I'll start by apologizing that I'm going to talk about media and entertainment and not about digital. Hollywood and Bombay and London, 3 cities, meaning Los Angeles, Bombay and London, 3 cities that promulgated film as a business, took 100 years to become as mature as creating movies like Avatar, or movies like The Ship of Theseus, or movies like, what did London create? Chariots of Fire, right? It took about 100 years for them to create these phenomenal movies. Then you see a company like Al Jazeera coming out of Qatar, creating the best news channel in the world in a flat 10 years. And you ask yourself, what took that journey and transition to happen for an industry to create a cluster out of a city, and then a nobody, both as a country and as a place where you would think of media or news, creating something as phenomenal as Al Jazeera, came out of Qatar. Then you ask yourself, Gangnam Style becomes a global phenomenon out of South Korea in 72 hours, right? And you then say, what is changing? So no longer is film or television content or news content or gaming content available only on that idiot box in your living room. It's available on a pad, it's available on your phone, it's available in multiple platforms in the same room. You could be seeing it moving, and suddenly you ask yourself, what's going to change for film producers, broadcasters, creation people, digital people, that someone like a broadcasting sector can be as bullish as saying $3 billion in 2012 can become $25 billion by 2020. And then you talk to industry stalwarts, you talk to people in the media and the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. You talk to different people in the various states in the country where there is enough scope to either promulgate enablers of media and entertainment or the sector directly. And you break this up into a multiplicity of elements. You take the creation of content, you take the distribution of content, you take the whole communication of content, whether it's satellite or cable. You take the exhibition of content, such as what happens in the PVRs and the Inoxes of India. And then you take the talent required to make it all happen. And while we were doing research at the Indian Broadcasting Foundation about 4 years ago, we chanced upon a fact that really shocked us. The Wall Street Journal is a $4.5 billion company. Did you guys know that almost 3 out of those $4.5 billion comes from education and not the newspaper? 3 out of $4.5 billion of the Wall Street Journal, sorry, I take that back, the Washington Post. Sorry. The Washington Post, $3 billion revenues out of the Washington Post comes out of education and not out of the newspaper, electronic or otherwise, including their television channel. And then I asked,